speaker, more than any other person in this country, has shone a light on how Wall Street greed has undermined the American dream for millions of Americans. In the aftermath of the 2008 financial crisis, she became the cop on the beat, chairing the Congressional Oversight Panel charged with holding Wall Street accountable for the mess that it made, and having the vision not just to rail about the problem with clarity, but to give us a solution which many of the people in this room fought for, to have a regulator in Washington whose only job, whose only client is consumers and people who work hard for their savings, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. Since then, her voice on banking and financial issues has been essential for our common fight for an economy that works for all. Perhaps better than anyone in the Senate, and perhaps with more clarity and charisma than anyone talking about these issues in the country, Senator Warren understands the impact of Wall Street greed on the economy and the financial pressures that the middle class and the working class face every single day. Please, we the people, join me in welcoming Senator Elizabeth Warren.
Heather is truly an amazing woman. Thank you. So it is great to be here with working people this morning. I come from a family that honored work. My daddy had a lot of different jobs. He ended up as a janitor. My mom, she worked a minimum wage job at Sears. I have 3 older brothers. I am the baby. And those 3 older brothers thought it was their job to teach me some lessons as we grew up. All 3 of my brothers joined the military. My oldest brother was career military, 288 combat missions in Vietnam, and he taught me we honor our promises to our veterans. He promised me that, taught me that. My brother David, he was the one with the special spark in the family. He started a little business. And when that one failed, he started another one. And when that one didn't make a go of it, he started another one. Couldn't imagine a world where he wasn't out there living by his wits every day. And today, David's retired. And what he's got to live on is his Social Security. And he reminds me every day that we honor our promises to our retirees, and that means protecting Social Security and Medicaid. John, when he got out of the military, he started working construction, and he joined a union, operated a crane. And what my brother John taught me, after he raised 3 kids on that salary, and now he's retired, and now he has a pension because of that good union job. He taught me that unions built America's middle class, and unions will rebuild America's middle class. About how the economy is roaring, stock market is up, unemployment's down, and I'm glad to see those numbers. I'm genuinely glad to see them. But I tell you, I have exactly one measure for how an economy is doing, and that is how are working families doing? How are working families doing? Do they have the money to be able to buy a home? The money to be able to send their kids to school? Do they have money in savings, money to be able to withstand a long patch of unemployment, money to cover prescription drugs, money for retirement, money for a little security? Do they have confidence that their kids will do better than they did. Because here are the facts in America. For a generation now, wages have been flat, just flat. And at the same time, the cost of housing is up, the cost of health care is up, the cost of child care has skyrocketed. Families are caught in a squeeze. There's less money that goes into pensions. They have less money in savings. In other words, we have an economy that is working great for the rich and not working for anyone else. So the question we have to ask ourselves is, why did that happen? It's not like a bunch of working people woke up one day and said, you know, it's okay with me if this economy doesn't work for me. That didn't happen. I'll tell you exactly what has happened. What has happened is our government has changed. Our government has been captured. It has been captured by powerful corporations and billionaires who have used their money to rig our economy so it works for them and not for you. That's what's gone wrong in this country. Now, it's time to call this out for exactly what it is: corruption. Corruption, when big corporations buy off government officials with thinly described bribes. Corruption, when politicians curry favor with companies so they can get a lucrative job when they leave office. Corruption, when cabinet officials, when agency heads, and yes, when the President of the United States himself have deep conflicts of interest and make themselves rich instead of working for the people. No one in Washington wants to talk about this, but we just have to spend a minute on it when we're here together. I want to talk about corruption in the courts. Yeah. For years, giant corporations, rich donors, and their Republican allies have waged a coordinated war to tilt the justice system in their favor. They stole a Supreme Court seat. And they installed union buster Neil Gorsuch on the bench. And now their investment is paying off. Look at the decision that's pending right now. Janus. It is an attack on hard-working teachers, on firefighters, on nurses, on public sector workers all across this country. They want to turn America into a right-to-work country for employees. They can't pass that through Congress, so they're trying to push it through the United States Supreme Court. And there sits Neil Gorsuch, the deciding vote in Janus, on the same day that the Supreme Court announced it would hear the Janus case. Where was Neil Gorsuch? The answer, speaking at the Trump Hotel. And who was he speaking to? He was speaking to a group funded by Charles Koch and the Bradley Foundation, and openly anti-union guys who have helped bankroll the Janus case. That is not a fair and independent judiciary. Here's what the people in this room know. Public service workers do hard, important work that strengthens our communities, and they have a right to bargain collectively, and we will fight for them. Corruption in the courts and corruption in Congress. A $1.5 trillion giveaway to giant corporations and billionaires. And what have they done with the money? In just 6 months, what those corporations have done is they have given $470 billion, nearly $500 billion, in stock buybacks right after the tax bill passed. That money has gone right back to wealthy investors, to CEOs, oh, and to the donors to the Republican Party. So let's be clear. That tax bill is evidence of corruption in Congress. And what happens after it passes? Paul Ryan says, well, there's no money now. So we need to cut Medicare, we need to cut Medicaid, we need to cut Social Security. There's no money now for infrastructure spending, no money for education, no money for tackling the opioid epidemic. Well, here's what I believe. The American people sent us to Washington to work for working families, not for giant corporations and billionaires. People have earned their Medicare and Social Security, and we will protect and strengthen those programs. We need to take those investments and build a future, not just for those at the top, but for all of our kids. Third corruption we need to talk about is corruption in the federal agencies. You may remember that when he was running for office, Donald Trump promised to stand for working people. But what has he done through the agencies so far? He's made it easier for big corporations to steal wages and to hide injuries and deaths on the job. He's delayed the rules to protect workers' health and safety, like the rules limiting exposure to beryllium and silica. He's worked to get rid of the rule that made millions more Americans eligible for overtime pay, and the list goes on. Trump has stacked the National Labor Relations Board with people who have spent their careers defending corporations and busting unions. I'll say it again. Workers have a right to organize, to demand dignity in the workplace, fair and decent wages and safe conditions, and we will fight for that. You bet. Understand one thing. I'm angry, but I'm ready to fight back. I'm here today because I'm an optimist. I'm here because I believe in democracy and I believe in fighting back. We're going to clean up this place. We're going to hose out this cesspool of corruption, and we're going to make this government work for the people. I stand with you in this fight all the way.
From the Faith in Action Fund. She has a question about mass incarceration.
Sorry, Reverend Andre Bennett is the one who's going to ask the question.
Now
we're ready.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
Good morning, Senator. How are you?
Good morning.
So I'm Reverend Dr. Andre Bennett. I pastor a church, a Zion Baptist Church in Massachusetts. Yes. And I'm here today with the Faith in Action Fund. I'm a personal witness of the destruction of families and communities as a result of the policing and incarceration of communities of color. I'm standing here representing my brother, Sean Ellis, who's unable to be here because he's currently he's out on bail, awaiting a decision from the Suffolk County District Attorney as to whether they're going to retry him after serving 21 years, 7 months, and 29 days in prison for a crime he didn't commit. Sean was tried 3 times. The first 2 trials ended with a hung jury, a mixed gender, mixed race jury, 5 and 3 days consecutively, respectively, deliberation. The third time, he was convicted by an all-white, all-male jury that deliberated for 30 minutes. It was the same case that both the DA and the defense presented. America's prison population has gone through the roof over the past few decades. It has national and local spending on policy and prisons. And prisons. The United States is currently spending approximately $180 billion a year, and this isn't because of more crime. It's because of over-policing, the war on drugs, a racially biased system, and other ways we choose to criminalize poverty and communities of color. This has been devastating to the entire communities, leaving millions of people with convictions that make it harder to earn a living and to speak out in our democracy. I want to know what specifically are you doing to turn the tide on all the financial resources being spent on arresting, trying, and locking people up, and to end this new Jim Crow system of mass incarceration and mass criminalization? And secondly, and Part B, as a co-sponsor of the Democracy Restoration Act, to restore federal voting rights to those who have finished a prison sentence, what will you do to get more than 19 of your fellow Democrats on board and actually pass it if we were able to take back the Senate?
Right. So this is a wonderful question, and I thank you for asking it. It is a reminder of how much is broken right now in America and how our obligation to make change is a moral obligation. So let me, if I can, since we're going to try to keep these short, let me do this in 2 ways. One is to talk about we need criminal justice reform in this country, but we need to understand it's not a little slice. We need reform of the whole system. And it starts on the front end with the activities we criminalize. For example, low-level drug offenses. More people locked up for low-level offenses on marijuana than for all violent crimes in this country. That makes no sense at all. No sense at all. So you change laws on the front end. When someone is arrested, we now have a criminal justice system in name only. People who can't afford independent representation are left with public defenders who, God bless them, do their very best, but are paid little and have huge caseloads. It means that they're there to stamp and pass along, to sign off. They are doing their best, but as a country, we are not investing in justice if we are not investing in defense for those who have been accused. And it works its way on through the system. When people are with courts, when people are incarcerated, incarceration itself is a national embarrassment in this country. People are subjected to inhumane conditions. This is not what a civilized, caring nation does. We are ruining lives by incarcerating people and by putting them in subhuman conditions. And then what we need to change is what happens when people come out. People come out unable to vote, but people also come out in many places unable to get a driver's license, unable to get a job. What do we think they're going to end up doing when they come out of prison and have absolutely no way to get back into their communities? Now, all I'm doing is identifying where the problems are, but it is good to start there because it makes us realize when we talk about criminal justice reform, we have a big agenda in front of us. We have an agenda that reaches all the way across. Right now, you pick places where you can come in on it. For example, Cory Booker and I, sorry, I'm gonna do 2 Cory stories here, so hold on. For example, Cory Booker and I have a bill that's called Dignity for Incarcerated Women. And it's about making certain that women who are incarcerated get access to sanitary products, are not shackled when they are pregnant, that they are treated like human beings. And let me just say on this one, we didn't have to wait for a majority in the Senate and the House to be able to get that through. Cory and I introduced the bill and got up and talked enough about what our prisons are doing to women, and by golly, the prisons themselves started to change. People started introducing state laws, and so we've seen some change in this area. Because I'm running out of time, I will also say my Cory Gardner story, and that is Cory Gardner, a Republican from Colorado. And now, this is when bipartisanship is good. We have a bill pending, bipartisan, that says when the states have acted to decriminalize marijuana, when they've acted to make marijuana legal, both for medical uses and recreational purposes, the federal government backs out and the state determines that legal is legal. And it helps some.
Thank you. So our next question comes from Zaki Medina, an airport worker and member of SEIU 32BJ.
Hello everyone, once again my name is Zaki Medina and I've been working at Newark International Airport for 3 years now. I work hard every day, lifting heavy bags, hundreds of heavy bags at that. And I still just struggle to pay my bills and put food on the table. My co-workers and I have been fighting for a living wage in a union for years and finally see the light at the end of the tunnel. Because we came together with our union, 32, we won one of the highest minimum wages in the country, $19 an hour. Which should be confirmed by the Port Authority this month. So my question to you, Senator, is how specifically would you use your elected position to support unions and make it easier for workers like myself to organize and make our lives better?
Oh, God bless you. I just want to start this for 1 second on the question about minimum wage. I mentioned earlier that I grew up in a paycheck-to-paycheck family. My daddy had a lot of different jobs, and when I was 12 and my brothers are gone, he had a heart attack. And we lost our family car, we nearly lost our family home. And I still remember every night after my mother would kiss me goodnight, she'd close the door, and then I'd hear her, she'd start to cry. And she cried because we were gonna lose our house. I remember the day that I walked into their bedroom and my mother had her best black dress out. You know the one, weddings and funerals. And she was crying, she was talking to herself, she wasn't talking to me, and she was saying over and over, we will not lose this house, we will not lose this house, we will not lose this house. And she pulled on that black dress and she jerked that zipper up, put on her high heels, blew her nose, put on her lipstick, and she walked to the Sears, and she got a minimum wage job. That minimum wage job saved our house, but it also saved our family. And I used to think of that story as a story about what a tough woman does when life gets rough. And it is. I give my mama a lot of credit. But I want to mention another part of it. It was at a time in America when a minimum wage job would support a family of 3. And you could make a mortgage payment, pay the utilities, and still put food on the table. And the reason a minimum wage job would do that, there were 2. One were the laws set right here in Washington, D.C. that said a minimum wage will be a living wage for a middle-class family. And the second is right where you went. It was also a time in America where we supported unions with laws here in Washington that would help people who wanted to unionize. So, push me on time, but all I can say on this one is, you count me in. I believe in unions. Unions built America.